Today, Cristiano Ronaldo exists as a modern deity. He is a billionaire athlete commanding a global empire and the attention of over 1 billion followers. But when a human climbs to the absolute peak of human achievement, a quiet paradox emerges. To stand that high is to stand entirely isolated. To understand this isolation, we must travel back to the island of Madeira in the 1980s. This was a working-class reality, completely divorced from the luxury of his current life. His father, Denise, had recently returned from mandatory military service in the Angolan War. He came back a broken man, rapidly descending into severe, chronic alcoholism. So when his mother, Dolores, discovered she was pregnant with a 4th child, she was terrified. The family was already struggling to survive. There was simply no money to feed another mouth. She took extreme, desperate measures. She drank warm, dark beer and ran to the point of physical exhaustion, pushing her body to collapse in a frantic attempt to force a miscarriage. The attempt failed, but it meant the entity we now know as CR7 began his existence as a literal fight against being erased before he was even born. Survival required sacrifice. At just 11 years old, he was sent 600 miles away from his family to live alone at the sporting CP Academy in Lisbon. The environment was ruthless. Other children relentlessly mocked his thick island accent, leaving him completely alienated. He cried in his dormitory every single day. Money was so tight that he and his teammates would wait outside a local McDonald's late at night, knocking on the back door to beg the employees for leftover burgers. Then, at age 15, his progress was halted by a diagnosis of racing heart syndrome, tachycardia. His resting heart rate would randomly surge out of control. It was a medical crisis that threatened to destroy his only escape route from poverty. He underwent laser heart surgery immediately. Refusing to let his own anatomy betray him, he was back on the training pitch days later, pushing his physical engine harder than before. These early traumas taught him that in his world, weakness was a liability he could no longer afford. To survive, he built an impenetrable armor. In 2005, just as his career was exploding at Manchester United, years of heavy drinking caught up with his father. He died from liver failure at 52. Rather than break under the weight of the grief, Ronaldo sealed himself off. He channeled the trauma into a ruthless, obsessive physical metamorphosis. The following year, during the 2006 World Cup, his on-pitch antics made him public enemy #1 in England. He returned to Manchester facing walls of overwhelming hatred from opposing fans. Instead of shrinking, he executed a unique psychological pivot. He explicitly stated that their hatred made him unstoppable, weaponizing the public's vitriol as high-octane fuel for his performances. This academic paper analyzes the CR7 Brand Identity Prism, an engineered psychological shield designed to project invulnerability. The text reveals how he manufactured his armor: a meticulously sculpted physical form, an arrogant personality, and extreme discipline. The towering arrogance and perfect physique are not symptoms of a natural ego. They function as a highly effective survival mechanism built to protect a traumatized kid from Madeira. Over the next decade, that machine executed an absolute global conquest. He shattered scoring records, dominated every major European league, and silenced the critics who doubted his longevity. The ultimate test of his willpower arrived during the 2016 Euro final. Just 25 minutes into the most important match of his international career, a severe knee injury took him to the ground. He refused to accept defeat. Dragging himself to the touchline, he aggressively coached his teammates through extra time until they secured the victory, and he lifted the international trophy. Years later, he made a final, defiant pivot to Saudi Arabia. The move secured extreme generational wealth, guaranteeing that his bloodline would never face the poverty he crawled out of. Through sheer force of will, he successfully outrun every limitation his early life tried to impose. But we have to look at what happens when a war like that is finally won. What remains of the man inside the armor? Footage from his own personal documentaries paints a haunting picture. Despite the unimaginable wealth and success, his daily existence is incredibly restricted and quiet. He may have 1 billion followers watching his every move through a screen, but his reality is starkly different. He lives largely disconnected from the world, confined within the insulated walls of his luxury. This is his ultimate psychological victory. He engineered a reality where that helpless, starving boy in Madeira can never be hurt again. The boy has been entirely replaced by a rigid, immortal monument. The legacy of CR7 proves a heavy truth. To become a god to a billion people, you must be willing to stand entirely alone.